Hello, friends. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and welcome to Signs of Our Time, discovering America's heritage, one sign at a time. This podcast is designed to provide the story behind the story found on America's roadside historical signs. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Griffin Hansen. I'll let Griffin introduce himself and tell us about his unique activities that are associated with historical markers. Recently, I've had conversations with some folks that are involved with historical markers. They have a passion for our heritage, and they approach it from everything from manufacturing, developing them, repairing them. And so Griffin has a unique niche in that area, and I'm going to let him tell us about it. Hello, Griffin.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm doing good, my friend, if I can get my tongue untangled. Well, let's begin. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you mentioned, I run a organization that works in a specific part of preserving heritage, America's heritage, and that is America's animated film heritage. And so I run an organization called the Animation Education Association. We like the rhyme. And what we do is we work with historical societies all across the United States to install historical markers or monuments for artists who made a big difference in the medium of animation. We like to say that there's a lot more out there than just Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And it's been really incredible through this project to not only get to preserve these people's stories and help enrich the local communities through these fun projects, but also give the families of these artists who otherwise haven't maybe had the chance to properly get their flowers or hear how people feel about their grandfathers or even their parents or somebody's art. It's really terrific to give the people who are still on this earth the opportunity to be complimented and to get the love and the flowers for the people that we're memorializing as well, because of course it's really great to do something that sort of helps keep their family alive.
Okay, and so I notice looking on different social media that you have out there, and by the way, we'll put some links to some of those in the show notes, but you're kind of focusing on historical markers, and I think that's fascinating. How you are preserving a lot of this about the animation industry through the historical markers.
Well, we do the markers, and specifically we do the single post markers, those aluminum ones. So you and I know, but just for the folks at home, you'll be driving down the road and you'll see a single post, a pole, and it'll have a big aluminum sign on top. And usually it's made by a studio called Seawall. That's who we use, and they're in Ohio. And Dave's talked to them before in a really great episode. And yeah, so we'll usually work with a state historical society because a lot of states in the U.S. have a program already set up. Wisconsin, for instance, we did a marker there, and they have all the paperwork and stuff you fill out, and then they have a very uniform way of doing it. Florida, New Hampshire. Oklahoma. We're doing one in Oklahoma in about a year or so. So it is really terrific that a lot of states have the infrastructure already in place for you to just approach them and say, we'd like to do this sign and we'd like to do this, that, and the other thing. And that's plenty of fun, but it's also really great when we get to sort of bend the rules a little bit. A state like California, when we reached out to the family of a gentleman named Steven Hillenberg. He was the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, and originally I thought it would be a fine idea to do a sign, just a little marker, and when I reached out to his wife and his son, they thought that it might be more fun if we put a commemorative bench at the school where he went to when he was in high school. That's in Anaheim, California. So even though my preference, well, I wouldn't say preference, even though my idea when I start these projects is to do those single post markers, when we run into a situation where the family says, wouldn't this be cooler? Or wouldn't this be a better way to commemorate them? Or something like that, then I'm usually all game because it just makes it even more fun.
Okay, that's great. So I like what you're talking about there because in our case, I was mentioning to you about the group that I belong to called Sojourners, and we're going to do a historical marker. We're actually going to have it as a kind of a park where we're going to have bricks, or commemorative bricks there with people's names that have been or are sojourners and the date they sojourn, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you can go all kinds of different directions when it comes to historical markers.
Yeah,
I've
I'm not
seen,
like a purist or anything.
yeah,
I if I see one on a wall or if I see one on a rock or something, I don't think that it's lesser than the posts or whatever. I still stop and read
yeah.
it.
Uh, I have um, I have had the historical marker database
Hmm.
director or editor on here, and J.J. Pratt on my show. And when you go to the database and look, there's all kinds of styles and
Hmm.
makeups of historical markers. So, but you said that you kind of focus on the animation industry. Um, I mean, that's a rich heritage. I do think about Walt Disney when I think of animation, but I do know there's lots and lots of other animation that's done out there.
Well, and
So,
that's just the thing is there's no reason to apologize because the reason that we even feel incentivized to do it in the first place is just that. I don't think that the issue is people don't know anybody besides Walt Disney. I
yeah,
think the issue is people besides Walt Disney haven't properly received the accolade.
yeah,
So
yeah.
when we come out and we do these projects, I don't, in honesty, I don't think these people are going to have their own theme parks and amusement parks
Yeah,
and rumors of them being cryogenically frozen or anything that extravagant. But it's still just to do something to make someone else say, "Oh, I didn't know that this artist made this," and "Oh, I didn't know they were from my hometown." While I'm at it.
yeah. I have I have mentioned in our discussion that I have developed some children's animated videos that focus on a particular Bible story, like, David and Goliath or something like that. Um, I found that for about a 2.5 minute animated video, I'll spend at least 8 hours of time from developing the script, doing the editing, pulling it all together. And that's, like I said, after all of that, I've got a 2.5 minute video that I feel pretty good about. So there's a lot of work that goes into it.
There is, and you're a much. I should hire you because our team
No.
doesn't work nearly that fast. But it's true. It's true
Well, I no, I don't have the quality you got, nor the
that.
imagination. Uh,
Well,
but
we'll call it a draw.
yeah, I enjoy doing it, and it is a different media to work with. Uh, you can make things done in animation that you can't get a real person to do. Now, with
Of
today's
course.
artificial intelligence, who knows? But
Mm.
anyway,
And the thing with the artists that we've commemorated thus far, I mentioned Hillenberg, but is he's maybe the most recent person off the top of my head. We have somebody else coming down the pipeline that I don't want to say because it can
okay,
always fall.
that's fine.
But
Yeah.
all I mean to say is that the artists that we're talking about here are from the 1940s and the 50s and the 60s, those really early days of
Okay.
the golden age of animation, as it's called,
Hmm.
the 1940s and the 50s. So again, to be able to go forward and to talk about these artists, it's not that we have it easier now, but to be able to talk about just how hard they had to work,
Oh yeah.
drawing every single frame,
Hmm.
painting, using physical materials and not digital art like we do at our studio is again just another way of saying we see how hard you worked. Unfortunately, these people might not have gotten the sort of flowers they deserved in life, so we're here to help them afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you go about making a decision about a historical marker? You obviously know of these people
Mhm.
from your industry, and so how do you go about deciding? Okay, I'm going to do one on this person or this process or whatever.
I pretty much have a big wish list. And
Okay.
the way that it goes is I like focusing on people from small towns more than anything because
Okay.
it's a lot of fun to do something that'll bring the community together in a small town versus uh, something in Chicago that will only just kind of be put on the side of a building or something. But what it really comes down to to me more than anything is I have pretty much a big wish list of places and people, and the biggest thing that gets me to really get the ball rolling is that aforementioned state-sanctioned marker program. So if the state already has the bones set up, then I might just say to myself, all right, maybe I'll just submit an application and we'll see how it goes. In a state like New Hampshire, where I'm from, it's actually free. But in another state like Florida or in Wisconsin, you have to not only pay to submit the marker application, but you have to pay for the marker itself.
Uh-huh.
But when I find myself in a situation where it isn't a formal infrastructure for proposing a marker, a state like California, as I mentioned just a moment ago, then I'll usually just sort of take things into my own hands. And I'm lucky that I have enough experience at this point to know how to go about these things. I don't just order the marker and then ask for permission afterwards or anything like that. And when it comes to working with the families proper, it usually isn't too hard to get in touch with people. Everybody's on Facebook and all that these days. But I spend a lot of time with the families writing up these proposals and writing up the wording and the text. And I'm not going to mention something that the family is very ashamed of, but of course that you also have to sort of weigh in the history side of things too. So if it's something that, let's say Nixon was an animator, and if we couldn't leave out the Watergate thing, even if the family really asked or something like that. Now, luckily, I've never been in a situation where it's been so prescient that we got in an argument over it or anything. But they understand, at least everybody I've worked with has been really understanding that we're commemorating, and it is very much because we love the artist, but it's also for the sake of history. It's not just a sort of fan page. Dave Layton was the greatest and sweetest and kindest artist. We have to use quantitative, concrete things that you can prove.
Right.
So maybe Dave Layton wasn't the sweetest and kindest and nicest artist, but Dave Layton was very influential because he did this, and that's how we go about it more than anything. They usually get that pretty well.
Yeah, I like what you said though about small towns, because that kind of lends itself to, there's so many people out there that have done remarkable things,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know about it. And we can find that there's a tremendous interest and connection. And, I talk about the great heritage of our nation. There's so many unknown and yet pretty important folks in our life. So you're helping capture some of that. So
yeah, I would hope so at least. But what it comes down to more than anything is a historical marker for a animator or a astronaut or a paleontologist, a president, anybody on Earth. It being in a tiny little small town, if that's where that person is from, as somebody from a small town myself, it shows the people who live there that really great artists, really great thinkers, really great speakers, politicians, astronauts, whatever you want to say, can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm from a very tiny little town in New Hampshire, and when you read about artists and books and stuff, you hear about how they came from the big city and all that jazz, and you sort of say to yourself, or some people internalize the idea that all of the famous people on Earth were born in Los Angeles and died in New York or something like that. I would hope that our projects do a lot of work to help remedy the fears that people might have in these small towns that they can't go forth and really make great contributions to our society and, of course, the medium of animation or anything that they choose to do. Because to me, it would be really cool for somebody who maybe thought to themselves, well, I like to draw, but who's going to care about me? I'm just from Marinette, Wisconsin or something like that. Well, when they see that we put a historical marker in Marinette, Wisconsin for a man who drew cartoons, they might not think it's something so silly. Maybe one day they'll be the one that has a historical marker put up for them.
I like that, Griffin. That is great. Who would have thought, Who would have thought?
Exactly. It's got to come from somewhere,
Yeah. Little Prattville, Alabama,
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's great. I love it. I love the passion in your voice for what you do. I truly do. And you've found an interesting niche that some folks wouldn't even think about. By the way, you're right about doing research before you start one of these projects.
Oh yeah, plenty of research.
When I thought about putting up a historical marker, I thought, can we? How do and then I began researching. Oh, yeah. And then I found out in Texas, you can have a historical marker anywhere you want if it's on your property. If you're going to be
Oh
on the
really?
easement or, then you got to go through the extensive process. All we have to do is make sure when we dig that hole, there's not a gas line or electric line underneath it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And
but
you
yeah.
got to get like some certified guy to do it. There's an artist named Mary Ellen Butte who is from Houston, and I really wanted to do a historical marker for her, and we may one day. But I remember going through. So Texas has one of those state marker program things,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I remember going through that, and theirs is really intense. Theirs is really,
Yes.
really detailed. They've got like different counties have like different boards who like look at it and stuff like that. And first, just for example, in New Hampshire, there's essentially two or three people that look over the whole thing, and that's a small state, mind you. But even in Florida, when we did one in Florida just a few weeks ago, there was only two or three people. I think Jeremy Hiker was his name, and another person looked over it. But no, Texas is really serious about it. So I commend you for being able to sort of push through the red tape there because it is a tough. It's not easy.
Yeah. It's a challenge. A lot of bureaucracy there, and you wouldn't think so, but there is. Okay. Um, so as you've gone around and you've seen different historical markers, you have an interest in them. I have a bumper sticker on my truck that says I brake for historical markers. Um, what are some unusual ones that you've seen out there?
Well, that is a great question. I think my favorite one in the whole world might be and of course I'm very biased, it might be in my native New Hampshire. It's in the town
Okay.
of Lincoln. And in the town of Lincoln, New Hampshire, right on Route 3, which is right next to the Indian Head Resort. And anybody who's from New Hampshire knows exactly what I'm about to say because there's only one historical marker anybody knows about. That is, of course, the historical marker for Betty and Barney Hill, who are supposedly the first people whose widely documented UFO abduction was a big story in New Hampshire, in the United States. And this was in the 1960s, and they were so goes the story, and how couldn't it be true that they were driving down the road. Betty and Barney Hill were a couple driving down the road late one night, and supposedly a alien ship abducted them and dropped them off a little bit later, and they went to I think they went to the Air Force with their story, and they asked them and everything, and then after that somebody from the Air Force leaked the story to the press, and that's how it became well known. So that's the justification that people give on them not being, crazy liars. Because instead
Okay.
of just running off to the Daily Mail, they thought that they should talk to the Air Force.
Okay.
So Betty and Barney have and of course, the town of Lincoln, maybe they do, maybe they don't, ironically, uh, push forth this whole thing about aliens and all that silliness. But of course, as a sort of way to lovingly tribute the very famous UFO sighting in New Hampshire, there is a marker right next to this very cheesy motel that I love going to. And people go
Okay.
there all the time and take photos with it, and they dress up in those inflatable alien costumes and all that crap. It's a lot of fun.
I'm going to have to check that one out. Betty
It's
and
nice.
Barney Hill.
Betty and Barney Hill, and it's right up. And I suppose if anybody's listening and they ever find themselves in the neighborhood, it's in a beautiful area. It's on Route 3, which is right near the Franconia Notch, and you can drive around and see the mountains and all this beautiful day tripping stuff, and then finish the day off looking at the alien abduction marker.
Yeah,
There you go.
I like it. I like it. Alien abduction. One time, one guest, I forgot exactly who it was. Oh, it was J.J. Pratt's. I asked him about a unusual marker, and he said, well, there's one in San Francisco, the Golden Hydrant. And it was the only hydrant that survived and was working during the Great San Francisco earthquake. And
Huh.
so I did an episode on that one. So my podcast isn't just about unusual markers, but there are some pretty interesting ones out there. Um, I've I've got a lead to one that's at the bottom of Lake Erie, a historical marker, and I'm going to
Really?
the most remote. So,
Hmm.
and I guess you could say the most remote marker might be up on the moon when the Apollo
Yeah,
program
when they
was.
left the little placard. I suppose
Yeah,
that's fair. I suppose that's
yeah.
fair. Now, there's something where they didn't have to go through any diplomatic red
Oh
tape.
no.
It's their marker. They were their own authority.
That might also qualify as the most expensive historical marker.
Yeah, I suppose
So,
so. If you think about it, you and I paid for it in so
yeah,
few
yeah,
words. So,
for real. All right. Yeah, there's some great ones out there. I've done one on Smokey the Bear, and I've done one on Paul Bunyan, and some others. It's fascinating. So,
there
what's
was
in the future?
one, oh, I'm sorry
Go
to
ahead,
interrupt. I
please.
only just thought of another one. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was unusual, but it was very beautiful. And it is
Okay.
in South Dakota. I went to South Dakota earlier this year, and I was in the Black Hills. And of course, you know Mount Rushmore, but Mount Rushmore is next to this area called the Forks, and the Forks Highway, pardon me. And when you're driving through the Forks Highway, it's this twisty and turny thing. It looks like something out of Lord of the Rings. But you turn the corner and there's this beautiful uh, quarry that you're looking right at and this enormous mountain in front of it. And right beside it, on the side of the bluff, is this beautiful marker, one of the aluminum post ones from Siwa. And it talks about how the mountain that you're looking at in front of you was the original mountain that they were going to carve the faces into. And I think there was something like, I think there was some diplomatic reason that they didn't do it. I think that that was why the original location was scrapped, and of course they went to Rushmore instead. But it's
Okay.
really cool to have a marker, and this is something we try to do with ours, but it's really cool to have a marker that enhances and contextualizes your surroundings. Because I think what's really terrific about these projects that we do, yourself and myself and anybody that you've had on the show, is we're essentially taking, let's just call it like it is, you know, a book or a Wikipedia page or just a little bio or whatever, and casting it in aluminum and putting it out in the elements. But what I think really makes it terrific, and this marker is a great example of that, is instead of just reading on a page, oh, did you know that they had a different mountain they wanted to do first? Great. And then
Yeah,
going
I
on
didn't
to
know
whatever's
that.
next. Yeah, exactly. And then just flipping to the next page. Instead, having the marker literally there contextualizes not only the text of the marker, but it sort of allows you to imprint on yourself this scenery that's around you. So let's just take the Stephen Hillenburg bench that I mentioned earlier, for example. I could tell you all day about what Stephen Hillenburg was like and how he loved his school and all that jazz, and I'm sure you'd retain some of it, but it really imprints and sticks with you a lot more to sort of be at the location, so you can later recall to yourself, well, you know, I saw this beautiful bench. What was I doing at that high school? Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
was reading this marker about this guy, and he was an artist, and yada yada yada. And so it's essentially like when you're looking at your phone and you're scrolling through photos that you have, you can sort of transport yourself there and say, wasn't that the day that he spilled ketchup all over himself or something like that? And so I think that the markers that we try to do, and most of the markers that I like the best, would
Yeah.
not be nearly as interesting if they weren't literally in the places that they are, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, that's right. Something happened here that had some significance, maybe not a lot outside of its area, but there was something that someone considered significant enough to try to record it and preserve it, I guess would be a good way to say that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you do have several social media outlets, and uh, again, your griffinthehansen.com website. What's in the future for you?
Well, at least for the Animation Education Association, we have a marker coming up in, I think, May, but let's just say next year because I don't want it to be
Okay,
pushed
yeah.
back or too
Uh-huh.
forward. So let's just say next year, we have a historical marker that's going to be in the town of McAlester, Oklahoma. It's actually
Okay.
going to be at their new library, and it's going to be for an artist named Mary Blair. And Mary Blair was a painter and a conceptual artist for the Walt Disney Studio, and a lot of her artwork really informed how the Disney Studio uses color in their films in the 1950s. So not only was she an art director on a lot of these films during and post World War II, but after she left that position and became a concept artist, these really vibrant and beautiful paintings that she did for the artists were very influential in the way that they would go about picking the pinks and the blues and the purples and stuff for the scenes. And to
Okay.
the average person, she's probably best known for being the sole designer of the whole It's a Small World exhibit at the
Okay.
Disney park. So if you've ever gone there and been really impressed by that very mid-century decor that they have inside of the little ride there, then it was all Mary Blair, all a little homesteader from Oklahoma.
Okay. That's
So
amazing. Everybody is from somewhere.
yeah, and that's the biggest thing that I think I'm okay with saying because I don't want to curse anything else. And we're trying to get some stuff started in Michigan, trying to
Okay.
get something started in New York, and there's a really, really big project that I'm trying to get off the ground, and I think I'm going to be able to do in Montana. So
Oh,
we might have to
okay.
have a follow-up episode sometime.
Keep me posted because I would be fascinated to learn what's going on. Before I retired, I used to be the state director for career and technical education for our two-year colleges here in Alabama. And a big part of what I did was help the faculty at our technical colleges develop their curriculum and teach teachers how to teach. But where I'm going with that is it always fascinated me. There was so much that went on behind the scenes in a particular career field or a particular discipline. I mean, you go to the doctor and you get an x-ray and it's amazing what these folks have to learn and all that goes into their processes. I worked one time with the uh, cosmetology faculty, helping them. Now, I don't know anything about cosmetology. I'm retired military. You sit in the barber chair and they run the clippers over you and that's it. But it was amazing what they had to learn to really do what they do, not just cosmetologists, but any career field. So it's fascinating to think about what all goes behind the idea of making an animated presentation of some kind. I mentioned, I'll spend 8 hours doing a 2.5 minute presentation. Um, you obviously the quality of your work and everything is far superior than what I glue together, but uh, yeah, the hours of work that goes in. And again, I'm going to wrap up running my mouth here, but those folks need to be honored that put so much of their life into something like that, and it becomes their life.
I
So,
agree. And I think that with animation specifically, we really try to focus on all positions because in the same way that not everybody who worked at your college was an educator, it's true that not everybody who works in animation is an animator. I'm a great example. I'm not an animator, but I work in animation. So
uh-huh.
even though we do what we can to commemorate people who did literally animate, I also put a lot of mental real estate into thinking of ideas for people who were background, like Mary Blair. She never
Hmm.
animated, so background designers and art directors and so on and so forth. Or voice actors is a great example. We haven't done any of those,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that'll come down the line one day. So again, this idea that there are just so many positions in the industry that, like, again, you're not remiss for only knowing about Walt Disney and maybe even just thinking that all I do is commemorate animators because it's no fault of your own. It's because the people who do these jobs aren't necessarily put on the pedestal that someone
Right.
like Disney is. So we do what we
Yeah.
can.
Oh yeah, and it's a worthy cause and one that should be because we do like to recognize those folks. Yeah, when I was in the Air Force, think about the hundreds, maybe thousands of people who got that one pilot in that airplane and to fly. All the maintenance and
Yeah.
all the personnel, and everybody's. And yet it's that we see the pilot. We don't think about that whole vast resource behind that person making it happen. And so that's, yeah, the animator gets the credit perhaps, but there's a lot of folks in there, a lot of folks.
A
So
lot of folks, the cheerleaders.
yeah, 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 everybody. Okay. Well, where can folks go to learn more specifically about, I'm going to mispronounce it. Is it Gruppet or Groupit?
Gruppet Studios is the name of
Okay.
our production company, and you can check it out on YouTube or on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you get your social media fix, I
Okay.
suppose. And the Animation Education Association also has their own social media presence. There's a Facebook and a Twitter and an Instagram for that as well. So you can find updates on projects there. The thing with the AEA is that we don't necessarily have like a set schedule for projects. It's sort of whenever it
Right.
happens, they get done. But hey, follow along and you'll be the first to know. Why not?
I love it. I love it. Well, it sounds like folks that are very passionate about the industry, passionate about what they do. And so it's good to know that. And I like the idea. I'm an educator at heart, so I like the idea that there's that huge piece of education that goes on there, helping folks come to an understanding of what this is all about. And who knows, you're going to inspire some young folks out there to get involved with it.
Good. I hope they do it, and I hope there's a marker for them one day too.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Okay. Well, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I suppose go out and to the audience, go out and find a marker and go take a photo with it.
Yeah, that's right. Uh, Pay
And read
attention.
it too.
Yeah, slow down and see what's going on around you. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it, Griffin. This has been fun. It's given me a better understanding of what you do and things that are out there. You know, after a episode like this, I never look at this thing the same way again. I've learned more about it and I see it differently. So,
Thank
okay,
you.
I'm going to start paying more attention to the credits at the end of some of
There
these
you go.
presentations.
It's all been worth it then. That's all it's for. It's all been worth it.
Okay. Well, friends, there you have it. A very different look at how we can enjoy and learn more about historical markers. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you, Griffin, for your time. I appreciate it very much. I invite you to subscribe and continue listening as we bring more episodes about the rich heritage of our great nation. Please share this podcast with others. If you have interesting stories about historical signs and markers, email me at americanhistoricalmarkers@gmail.com. That's americanhistoricalmarkers@gmail.com. Maybe your story behind the story will be featured. I'm your host, Dave Layton. Thank you for listening and safe travels.